Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. We'll be getting started in approximately 5 minutes from now. So while you're waiting, if you'd like to participate in our iClicker questions later on, we have put the course information on the screen and the course link is also in your questions panel. So you can use your instructor email and password to log in or create an account if you don't have one yet. You can also participate with your mobile device using the iClicker student app. So you'll just want to look for Macmillan Learning as the institution and iClicker and Achieve Biology as the course. Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for our webinar, iClicker and Achieve Active Learning in the Biology Classroom. Just a few announcements before we start our presentation. Once again, if you're just joining us now, we have put our course information on the screen and in the questions panel. If you already have an instructor account with iClicker, you can use your instructor email and password to log in. You can also participate with your mobile device using the iClicker student app. You'll just want to look for Macmillan Learning as the institution and iClicker and Achieve Biology as the course. We have also muted everyone to keep out background noise today, but we do want to hear from you. If you'd like to ask a question or give us any feedback, feel free to type it into the questions panel on your screen at any time. We will be monitoring the questions as they come in, but we'll also be saving some questions for a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If we don't get to your question in the webinar, we'll also be sure to follow up with you by email. Finally, we are recording the webinar and we'll email you a link to the recording and the slide deck within the next few days. And with that, that's it for housekeeping. So my name is Lindsay Thomas, and I am the Training and Documentation Manager here at iClicker. I am very excited to introduce today's presenters, Natalie Dougal, who is our iClicker Training Specialist and Faculty Advocate and has experience using iClicker in the classroom, and Jim Zubricki, who is our Teaching and Learning Strategist and also has experience using Achieve in the classroom. Natalie's going to start, so over to you, Natalie.
Okay, thank you so much, Lindsay. This is going to be a fun presentation that I hope everyone is going to be able to take something new from. So this is what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be first talking about iClicker and Achieve just overall, because I know some in our audience might be more familiar with Achieve, some are familiar with iClicker, some are familiar with neither. Everybody's going to get a good introduction to what both of these tools can do in the biology classroom. Then I'm going to do an overview of iClicker, and I'm also going to demonstrate how it works. So if you've never used iClicker in your classroom before, I'm going to give you a really good understanding of just how it works in an on and off kind of a way. But I'm also going to give you a few ideas for how you could use it in your classroom in some ways that might help you solve some classroom issues. Then Jim's going to take over and he is going to talk about Achieve, and he's going to demonstrate how it's a really great tool for your biology classroom. And then lastly, like Lindsay said, we're going to have that question and answer session, and that tends to be some of the best time in these webinars because we really get to hear from you all what you need and are thinking about. So if you have a question in your head right now, please throw it into the chat. Like Lindsay said, there's a team that's going to collect those answers, those questions, so that we can be able to answer them and really make sure you get what you need from our time together today. Okay, so let's take a quick little overview of how iClicker and Achieve work together. So what is Achieve? Achieve is I like to think of it as a multi-tool, and it's an easy and simple way for you as an instructor to design and deliver course content to your students. So every instructor has a unique way of approaching their students and approaching material. And this makes it really easy to make sure that what you're having your students do outside of class, especially, really matches what you're doing inside of class. You and your students are covered before, during, and after class. So, you're really able to take advantage of the time before your students come to class with certain activities. Then during class, you're able to use Achieve to run your in-class activities, like maybe asking some iClicker questions. And after class, you're able to bookend all of that learning experience with a lot of our homework solutions and such. It comes with out of the box, ready to assign formative and summative assessments. So, this is really great because these assessments are designed not only to make sure they reach your learning goals and all those sorts of things, but they're also designed with students in mind. And they really are things that work for students who are very high achieving and students who may be struggling more. A dynamic ebook is also often available within the Achieve system, and I know that's something that Jim is going to talk about. And then lastly, Achieve includes iClicker as part of those tools that we use to reach students at different times. So, what does iClicker bring to your Achieve classroom? It's a really easy and simple way to make your classes responsive and interactive. So, simply with iClicker, you as the instructor ask your students questions and students respond in real time. It's really fun, it's really easy, and it's something that can add a ton of energy and value to your classroom. You can use iClicker with whatever tools you're already using. So in this case, right now, I'm using a Google slide deck. Sometimes I use PowerPoint. I've used a Microsoft Word document. There are all kinds of different tools that you can use it with. It also works great with things like Zoom. Right now, we're using GoToWebinar. And even though this is completely remote, none of us are in the same room together, I'm going to be able to have an interactive event. So it's really great if you are not able to be in the same room with your students as well. And then iClicker activities and question decks are included with Achieve. So a lot of times we'll see something that looks fun and interesting to bring into our classrooms, but the idea of adding something new to our already packed lesson plans can seem really daunting. What's really great about Achieve is there are all kinds of activities that work with iClicker that you can bring into your classroom with a 10-minute commitment, a 15-minute commitment. And he's going to show you how those work. So I want to go ahead and kind of take the pulse of this group. I want to see who I have here because I kind of predicted who I had here today. But I want to see what your experience level is with Achieve and iClicker before. So here I have my iClicker toolbar. I'm just going to go ahead and open it, and I'm going to click on poll. And I have a multiple choice question here, so I'm going to make sure that I have that selected. And then when I click this play button, it's going to take a capture of my desktop and it's going to send it to student devices. So I see that a lot of you have already joined my session, and I can see that a lot of you are responding very, very quickly. And that's great. This is my first question, so I kind of leave it open a little bit longer just because I know that some of you are in the process of right now adding the course. So I want to know, have you used Achieve or iClicker before? Some of you have used Achieve, some have used iClicker, some have used iClicker and Achieve, or some of you have not used either of them. All right, I've got 5 responses here, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the poll. If you didn't get a chance to answer this question, don't worry about it. I'm going to ask some more moving forward. Let's go ahead and look at our results. Okay, so it looks like some folks have used Achieve, others have used iClicker. We've got everybody across the board. And you can see grading my answers, all I had to do was touch on each answer to mark it as correct. I can touch it again to ungrade it, but I want to give everybody a point for this. So there, everybody gets a point for that. And now I'm going to hide my results so that I can have my full screen. So that's really how easy iClicker is to use. And a lot of you that I just asked know that because you are familiar with iClicker. So I know my audience better just based on that question I asked. So how does iClicker work in your classroom? The first thing that's really great about iClicker is you can get students to your class, and to your class may mean a physical classroom, or it may mean that they come and they show up for your Zoom lecture. But either way, when students come to your class, they check into your class with iClicker. And they just click a little button that says join class. And with that, they've checked in with iClicker attendance. And this is really wonderful. Not only does it create a record for you, so you know who was in class that day, but it creates this a record for the student themselves. They get this great calendar view. They can know when they've missed class, and so they can self-monitor. And instead of asking you if they can miss class, you can say, "Hey, look at your app. See how many days that you've missed. You can miss 2 this semester. How many have you missed?" And really, it helps them to be a little bit more independent. You can also then make your passive classes active with iClicker polling questions. So one of the things that we've seen with iClicker is it's a great way to reset student attention. Students come to class, and after 5 to 10 minutes, their mind has been grabbed by something else. And when you ask them an iClicker polling question, it asks them to re-engage with your material. And they also feel like, hey, my instructor really cares about my opinion, or they really want to know if I'm able to answer this question correctly. And so they get a little bit more skin in the game when they're listening to your lecture. It's also a great way to give every student a voice. Discussion is a huge part of a lot of classes, but a lot of times in a discussion-based class, you find that the same voices dominate again and again. And it can be really hard to kind of lift other voices. With iClicker, you're able to even the playing field and make it so that every single student is able to respond and everybody's response counts in the same way. iClicker also makes it really easy to create tight feedback loops. If I give a quiz to a student on Friday and Monday I have that quiz to return to that student, that's a super tight turnaround time. But my student, on Friday, they were struggling with the material and the challenge of the questions. And then when they get the quiz back on Monday, the thing that they're going to look at most is the grade on the top of the quiz. And they're not necessarily going to engage with the problems or the challenges of that particular assessment. Whereas when I'm using iClicker, you can present your students with a challenge and you can tell them immediately whether they hit the mark or not. And in that way, you create a really tight feedback loop where the focus really stays on education and learning rather than thinking about what particular grade or point that student might be getting. And those tight feedback loops really lead to more dynamic learning experiences. And then lastly, with iClicker, something that I really love is it has iClicker study tools. And this is something that students can use after class to create flashcard packs and practice tests. So students are able to just sit there with their phone and use it as something that they can study with. Um, and it really makes it so that not only are they focusing on course concepts and things that were really important from class, but they're actually thinking about dynamic class moments. And that makes some really interesting neural pathways in their brain. Because you're actually asking them to recall memories of things that happened together. I think it's really cool. Okay, so activating iClicker and Achieve is very, very simple. The first thing that you need to do is simply have some iClicker questions that you want to ask. Something that people can struggle with a little bit when they first hear about iClicker is they go, where do I load things in? Where do I tell it what the right answer is? And the thing is, iClicker works along with you. So all that you need to do is write questions and put them into whatever you use to present to your students. You can also download them from Achieve. And again, Jim's going to show you some examples of those resources. The next thing that you need to do is create your iClicker course in Achieve, which is a very simple process. All you need to do is log into Achieve, click on your course, click on the gradebook, and you'll see an iClicker button there. Click that iClicker button and just follow the prompts, and you will have your course created in Achieve. It's a very fast process. And then lastly, you just want to get comfortable using iClicker Cloud. When you're using a new tool in class and it's a live sort of event, you can kind of feel like the pressure is on. So you might want to meet with one of us through a training time to have us show you the software, and we can even help you set up your course and play student with you. That's something that we would really love to do. Um, so feel free to reach out to us, but we also have a ton of self-service items. We host webinars like this. We do a lot of videos. We have articles, all sorts of things to help you be comfortable bringing iClicker Cloud into your classroom because it's an awful lot of fun. So I want to ask you all another question. I want to know how you're teaching this fall. So I'm going to click on the poll button. And again, I make sure that it's set to multiple choice. And now I hit the play button. And it's just taken that capture of my slide and it sent it to your devices. So I've got 5 responses right now. I'm going to let it go till 30 seconds. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop it. I'm glad I got that 6th one in there. iClicker questions tend to be under 30 seconds, especially when they are multiple choice questions. Doing them really quickly can be really fun. Obviously, there are instructors who leave them open a lot longer. But if you're really thinking, I don't want this to take up a ton of time in my course, just know that it generally doesn't. So here I'm going to click on results, and I can see that 2 of our folks are teaching in person, 3 are hybrid, and then we have someone who isn't teaching this term. So that's really great. iClicker works beautifully in person and hybrid situations. And it also has a lot of functionality if you're teaching online as well. So that's something too that we have in our self-service too. We really do try and customize all of our guides for the different ways that you're teaching. Here's an example of a target question. And this is where you ask students a question by sending them an image. So here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send this capture of my desktop to student devices. And that happens automatically when I hit that play button. And what I'm asking you to do here is to select the level of Bloom's taxonomy that represents separating a concept into its parts and learning how they relate to one another. So all you need to do with this question type is to touch on the part of the image where you believe the correct answer is, and then you'll just want to make sure that you've hit the send button to make sure that I receive the response. And then as the instructor, let's see, I've got 3 responses, 4. I'm going to wait until the full minute, and then I'm going to press stop. Okay. And then I can click on results and I can see easily where my students responded. And I can see, okay, my group is a little broken between whether it's analyze or apply. And then for me to grade it, I simply put a box around where the correct answer is, and anywhere within the boundary will be marked as correct, and anywhere outside of the boundary will be marked as incorrect. Now I'm going to click save. So this has a ton of application in so many classrooms, and it's a really nice type of question to ask because it just gets students interacting with material in new and interesting ways. So here's an example of a short answer question, and this is a really good question that I like to ask, which is how do you personally define active learning? So I'm going to go ahead and click that play button. Again, I always get the reassurance of what my students are being sent by getting that preview of the desktop capture. My students here are able to respond with up to 140 characters, like a tweet. And because it's a short answer question, it takes a little bit longer. Something else that's nice about bringing iClicker into your classroom is it gives you a chance to take a sip of coffee, to adjust something that you need to adjust. It can just give your students something to focus on while you need to make an adjustment, maybe in your lesson plan, something along those lines. Okay, got 5 responses. And I'm gonna wait till 1 minute. I'm gonna go ahead and stop it. All right, now I can take a look at my results. Okay, and I can look through them this way, or I can go ahead and I can actually display it as a word cloud. And I can see that students are at the center of everybody's responses and that we're really focused on students when it comes to active learning. Now, when we're talking about active learning, we are talking maybe more specifically about the active learning concept rather than simply students being active in the classroom in a more general sense. So passive learning is marked by instructors presenting information. And this is kind of the stereotypical professor at the front of the classroom, students listening with rapt attention, taking lecture notes that we think of when a lot of times when we think of higher education. And there's nothing wrong with this necessarily, and there are definitely times where we need to slip into this model. But it comes from the idea of the student is an empty vessel that ideas can simply be poured into, information can simply be poured into. And you know, the more that we learn about how people learn, the more we know that it's more complicated than that. With passive learning, students generally listen and they take notes, and that's the extent of their involvement in the class. And we can think about class as a one-way conversation. It goes from instructor to student. And if students do give anything back to the instructor, it's simply to ask a question or to clarify. It's not something that would require the instructor to say change their lesson plan. Now, with active learning, instructors are really involving students in the lesson. Students are integral to the lesson itself. Students learn by doing. So this could be experimentation, this could be discussion, this could be responding to questions using iClicker. And it's great to think about class as a two-way conversation. Something that instructors have to do with active learning that can be a little bit of an adjustment is they have to be a little bit more flexible. There may be things that result from an iClicker polling session that surprise them, and they have to go back and change their lesson plan on the fly as a result. So that is one of the reasons that people can resist active learning is it does involve a two-way conversation, and sometimes the instructors need to be the one who flexes and changes. So here are some pedagogical iClicker activities that any instructor could use whether they're teaching biology or not. One of the things that iClicker is really great for is ice breaking. Students work better when they know one another. They have better class experiences. And we've just come off of a year and a half of a lot of social isolation. So ice breaking has more pedagogical value now than ever before. It's also great for you as the instructor. I always like knowing which of my students are working full-time jobs outside of class. I always like knowing which of them are maybe doing elder care or child care in their free time. Um, and having that information given at ice breaking, it's something that I can refer to throughout the term to kind of get a snapshot of who my students are. Another really great use for iClicker is through entrance and exit tickets. So sometimes instructors say, I don't really know when I'll find time to bring iClicker into my classroom. By having a question that you habitually ask at the beginning of class and one that you ask at the very end of class, it can be a very low stakes way to bring it into class. So you can ask something like, what do you remember most from our last class at the beginning of your next class? And you're going to get some interesting responses. They might not respond the way that you think that they will, but it's also going to do something really interesting in your students' brains by asking them at the beginning of the last class to really think about that last class. You're really framing their brain for learning and getting them ready to take on the challenge of a new class. Entrance to exit tickets work in that same way, where you can ask your student to say rate the day's difficulty in class and to let you know if they have any other questions. And what's great is iClicker has that built in. So when I end my session today, I can simply end my class with an exit poll and ask my students how they thought the day's class went. So again, we're making it easy to bring into your class. You can also use it for think, pair, share activities. With this, you present a problem to the class. You ask them to respond. Don't tell them the correct answer. Uh, Ask them to get together with someone in the class who supplied a different answer, and then ask those two people to come to a consensus on the correct answer. Then you can bring up both sets of results and discuss with the class why answers changed over the two questions. And then you, as the instructor, can explain the correct answer. This is a way to take one iClicker question and turn it into maybe a 15-minute activity that's really memorable. And it makes it really easy. You're not dealing with slips of paper. It's not difficult to match students up. It's something that can be all done through the app. Another great use for it is virtual hand raising. If you are teaching, say, a Zoom lecture and you're trying to monitor the Zoom chat at the same time, that's kind of a nightmare. I'm not monitoring the chat right now. Lindsay is, and I am so grateful that she's doing that. Something that instructors have been doing with iClicker is they are using iClicker and they're saying, hey, if you have a question for me, I'm going to open up a short answer poll. Let me know what questions that you have. And that way the students have a discrete way to directly ask the instructor a question. But it also makes it so that one student can't ask 15 questions at a time. They can only ask one question at a time. So it makes it manageable for you as the instructor. And then lastly, you can always ask on the fly questions with iClicker. So if you're explaining something to your students and they all look super confused at you and you think, I lost them somewhere, you can stop and say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confused are you right now? And then talk about where that confusion is. And that's because iClicker is not preloaded and it doesn't railroad you into having one predetermined lesson plan. Because again, when you're doing active learning, you have to be flexible to make it a two-way conversation. So I'm going to hand it over to Jim right now. And that will just take a moment. And he's going to show you all about Achieve. And I think he might be on mute.
Yep, I was just trying to switch screens, so I
Hi.
apologize for that. Thanks, Natalie.
Yep.
All right, so welcome everyone. So the screen I'm sharing with you right now is what Achieve looks like. Natalie was talking about how we're trying to take care of you before students come into class, while students are in class, and after class. So that's what Achieve is really meant to be. While it's an online homework system, we're really trying to take care of you before class, during class, and in class. So I'm going to show how that works with our assignments. But before I dive into an example chapter, what I'd like to do is show you around a little bit inside the Achieve system. So right now, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen that there's a series of buttons, and this is going to control what we're looking at inside the course. And right now we're on the main button over here, which we call My Course. So this is the home screen. This is where your students are going to do all of their work. This is where you're going to do most of your work setting up the course. And now you can see on the screen that we're looking at past assignments, what's due this week, what's due next week, as well as in the future. And this is where, so when your students come into the course, they get to see exactly right up front, this is what they've got to complete this week. Okay, so not only is this what you see, but this is also what your students see as well. Now, that being said, another thing I want to show you is that if we go back to the left-hand side of the screen and I click on the second button from the top, the second button is called Resources. And so if you're ever looking for any materials for your textbook in a hurry, this is the best place to go. So on the left-hand side, you're going to be able to search by chapter, you're going to be able to search by unit, but I definitely want to pick out this folder right here, Teaching Resources. So for this particular textbook that we're looking at, right now I'm using the Michelle Schuster, Janet Vigna textbook, Biology for a Changing World, or Scientific American title. So if I open up Teaching Resources, you're going to see that you have access to all of the lecture slides. You'll even have a section of clicker questions that are ready to go. You can download these onto your computer and open these up and run iClicker with these questions. So just like Natalie was showing you how to run the multiple choice questions in iClicker this afternoon, you can use these pre-built questions and ask questions to your students in class, whether that's face-to-face, virtual, or asynchronous class, or you could do synchronous class, doesn't matter. You can use iClicker with your students. Now, not only that, but you have access to image slides, figures, photos, and tables, stepped art, our animations and simulations, and then your instructor activity guide. So we're trying to make sure that we take care of you no matter what comes up or whatever needs you've got. We're trying to make sure that we've got you taken care of. Now, this instructor activity guides, these are really special for this edition. And what I'm going to do is come back to this in a couple minutes. So we're going to explore more about what this instructor activity guide is. Now, another thing that's really important inside the Achieve course, something else that's really important inside the Achieve course is that the ebook for your textbook is also here as well. So if I go back to the left-hand side of the screen, this time I'm going to go to the 5th button down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to have the ebook. And so if I go inside the ebook area, I'm going to have access to the entire textbook as it was printed. So for example, let's just go check out what chapter 7 looks like. So if I open up chapter 7, it's all divided into sections. So let's check out section 7.2 on the DNA double helix. So what's really nice about this is that students can access the ebook online through the Achieve portal. They can also download the textbook. And if I go to my name in the upper right-hand corner and click on my name, I actually have a link here that says download ebook app from App Store. So your students can actually download the ebook onto their computer, and they're able to keep the downloaded ebook for 4 years. So while they would have access to Achieve for however long they purchased a subscription, usually it's 1 term or 1 semester, they would be able to keep that downloaded textbook on their device for 4 years. So that's pretty cool. Now, not only that, but this particular title is extra special because as you're going through the text and you scroll down, you'll have these infographics, but what we've also done is embedded the animations directly inside the textbook. So for this particular title, we have animations. There's other titles that have simulations built in, pencast videos where someone's solving a problem. So it really depends on the type of textbook that you have, but we have these animations built in and placed exactly in the textbook where the authors wanted them placed. And these animations use the images and the language that's being used in the textbook. Pretty cool. All right. So that being said, let's go take a look at how we have you covered before class, during class, and after class. So the way I'm going to get there, I'm going to go back to the left-hand side of the screen. So back to our menu. And this time what I'm going to do is go up to the top where it says My Course. So we're going to go back to the home area. Okay. Now to get to the heart of the course, what I'm going to do is change this drop-down box where it says Viewing by Assignments. If we change this to Course Content, now what we're going to see is that we're going to see the individual chapter folders for this textbook. So because we were checking out chapter 7 in the ebook, let's check out chapter 7 here inside the Achieve system. So I'm going to click on the link to chapter 7. Once I'm in there, you're going to see a link that to the study guide. So students can have access to the study guide and solve a couple extra problems. And basically it's like a lecture outline. But you have another subfolder that's reading. If we go in here, in this subfolder, you're going to see links to all of the ebook sections of the chapter. So this is the same as going to the left-hand side and clicking on the ebook. So we're trying to make sure that students can access the ebook whenever they need to. All right. So to back out of this folder, what I'm going to do is click on the set of ellipses right here at the top center. Okay, and let's click on chapter 7. Okay. So that being said, the heart of this chapter is really here in the chapter 7 assessment. So let's check out what's available. So like I said, we're trying to make sure that we have you taken care of before class, during class, and in class. So before class, we have an assignment that's ready to go, that's out of the box, called Learning Curve. It's our adaptive quiz software. The goal of Learning Curve is to get students to read the textbook and comprehend what they're reading. And it does so by using a game-like environment. So basically what we're trying to do is make sure that students are reading the textbook. The questions being asked in this adaptive quiz are going to be levels 1 and 2 in Bloom's taxonomy. So we're talking about basic reading comprehensions. If you think about it this way, to build a table, if you think about this chapter as a table, you need the legs in order for the body to sit on. And Learning Curve is really just providing the legs so that that way they understand what's going on inside lecture, and they understand what's going on in, all these other activities that you're doing. So you've got an adaptive quiz. This is ready to go. You can assign this right now, and it's pretty easy to do so. After class, we've got a summative quiz. And if you've ever used this particular title, this was in our old system, Learning a Launchpad. And so for this particular title, Learning Curve, the adaptive quiz, and the summative quiz, these were carryovers from the Launchpad system. But for this particular title, we're very proud of our new homework assignments. These are really special in that the questions here are going to encourage active learning. So absolutely, we want you to use active learning, and just like Natalie was showing you with using iClicker, and that's part of active learning, but the homework also has to reflect active learning, and that's where this comes in. So let's take a look at the homework assignment. So while you do have a bunch of iClicker questions ready to go for every chapter, you also have questions here inside Achieve as well. So for this particular homework assignment, for this homework, every row on this table represents a question, and the column here that has no label is called the title and description column. This is going to give you a really good sense of the question before you see that question yourself. So if I go down to line number 1, the title reads chromosome definition, and it's the description reads identify a chromosome from a description. And look at this, it actually says iClicker friendly. So what's really cool is that you could use this particular question, and what I'm going to do is go to the left. You've got a clickable image of this question. So it is possible that you could deliver this question to your students in class if you wanted to. So right now, since we're in instructor mode, we're going to see this. We're going to see the question as it's being delivered to students, but we're also going to see the solution by default. Okay. Now, every single one of our homework questions has 3 things in common with each other. And actually, at the bottom of the screen, you're starting to see one of those right now, that there is a detailed solution to each and every one of our questions. And usually this solution is worded from a point of view of, let's say, you have absolutely no clue on how to answer this question. At least by reading this solution, you're going to gain an appreciation of where this question is coming from. Okay, so you've got a detailed solution. If I go to the upper left-hand corner of this screen again and click on question view, you can see the question as it's delivered to students, but also there's going to be one hint for every question. And the way that we use our hints, we set it up this way. If you need to use that hint, it's there if you need it. If you don't need it, you don't have to open it. So there's no penalty to open up the hint. It's there if you need it. It's kind of like a security blanket of sorts. So you've got the hint. And then finally, if I go back to the left-hand side of the screen, and this time I click on the incorrect feedback tabs, you can actually scroll through the user-specific feedback based on what they're putting into the system. So for instance, if I answer this question and say centromeres, here's the feedback that I'm going to get for that. So for this particular question, since it is a multiple choice question, there are only 3 different incorrect feedbacks that we have programmed, but for some questions like our numeric selection or passage completion or sorting, matching, depending on what question you're looking at, you could have upwards of up to 20 different types of incorrect feedback that you can scroll through. So those are the 3 features that we are proud of with every single one of our homework questions, that there's user-specific feedback, there's at least 1 hint per question, and there's a detailed solution for each and every question. Now, not only that, but back in the homework assignment, you've got a homework assignment already pre-built for you. So you could use this assignment out of the box and it's ready to go. Okay. You can also customize it, and the way to customize it is to go to the question bank at the top center of the screen. And if you look at the left-hand side, you'll see that for this particular title, for Schuster, you actually have 2,502 questions to look at. Now everything is broken down into chapters. So if I go down to chapter 7 on DNA structure, there's 97 homework questions to choose from. Okay, so I could be looking at animation questions. I could look at end of chapter questions. There's a whole lot here that I can use to put together my homework assignments. Okay, to get a homework assignment live to students, it's a 3-step process. And what we're doing right now is choosing the questions to use in the assignment. When you have the assignment ready to go, the second step is to choose the grading settings. So from the assessment screen, I'm going to click on grading settings. You've got 4 standard policies in your account that you can use. Everything uses our standard homework policy, which has unlimited attempts, 5% penalty per incorrect attempt. Students see the solution upon question completion, so either getting the question right or giving up, and then seeing resources like datasets, ebooks, simulations, stuff like that. Now, if you want to create your own custom template, absolutely you can do that. And you'll see down below, right now we're logged into my account, so you're seeing all the different policies I've used for different classes I've taught over the last 4 years. So here they are. So once you create a policy, you can reuse that policy over and over and over again for different classes. Once you choose the policy, which is the second step, the final step is to assign the assignment outright. So what I'm going to do in the upper right-hand corner from this screen, I'm going to click on the Assign Item button. What that does is right now we're looking at student access. So right now this is private, hidden from students. What I'm going to do is click Assign to Students. We choose the due date, time, and the number of points for this assignment. So what I'm going to do is choose 20 points. Okay. Ooh, my mouse is super sensitive, so let me do that again. All right, so 20 points. You can even choose when this assignment's made visible to students. So the default is that it's made visible to students for the entirety of the course. But if you wanted to choose or modify the date range that this assignment goes live, you can absolutely do that. So what I'm going to do is click Save Changes. And we're going to get a confirmation that this assignment has been assigned. So now what I'm going to do is hit the home button twice. So in the upper left-hand corner, I'll hit the home button, 1, 2, and that takes me back all the way to the front screen. And there it is. We've got our homework assignment. It's live. It's worth 20 points, and it's live, and it's due on October 6th at 11:59 p.m. All right. So 2 more things before I hand it back to Natalie. So one thing that we've done is that we are tying every single one of our homework assignments. But not only that, we're also tying the learning curve questions and the summative quiz questions to learning objectives from the textbook. So that way, on the left-hand side, you're going to get 2 different types of reports. You're going to get insights, which are meant to give you very quick information about how your students are performing in class, and then reports where you can get more detailed information about how your students are doing. So right now, because we have no students and we only have 1 assignment in here, I'm not getting a whole lot of information. But once you have students inside the course and they start answering questions, all of this information will populate. There's nothing you have to do to make this run. So we're trying to make sure that you have information about how your students are behaving in the course in real time. Absolutely. So we've got you taken care of before class with learning curve, after class with homework and summative quizzes. We've got the ebook. What about the during class? Well, I did show you the iClicker questions that we have already pre-built for you. But now what I want to do is go back to the resources area and show you that extra special material that we've got. We call it the instructor activity guide. So what I'm going to do is go, now that I'm back into resources, I'm going to go back into the teaching resources folder. If I open this up, I'm going to click in the check mark box for instructor activity guides. And so now you're going to see links here for all the different activities per chapter. So I'm just going to click on the first one that comes up for chapter 7. What this is a complete lesson plan. So it's going to give you a summary of the activity. Now, what's really nice is at the top, it's going to tell you, where is this activity best for? Is this better for an online class? Is this better for a face-to-face? Is it better for a large lecture of 200 plus? Or can you use this with anyone? So for this particular activity, you can use this for any class size. It tells you how long this activity will take, the effort of implementation. So how much effort are you going to have to put into making this activity work? And then what level of Bloom's taxonomy is this question going to fall into? So not only do you have the summary for the activity, but you also have learning objectives for this activity. So these are the learning objectives that this activity is trying to hit. Now, not only that, but you also have all of the resources that you will need to make this activity work. So for instance, if you need, for this particular activity, we need a student at worksheet that you can download, copy, and pass out to your students if it's a face-to-face course, or you could post this on your LMS and give this document to your students. That way they can do this online. But not only that, but you've also got a set of lecture slides that you can use with this activity. And then also the recommended tools. And you'll notice right on top, it says iClicker Cloud. So yeah, we want you to use iClicker with this activity. And then down below, it's actually going to give you a blow by blow. How do you run this activity in your course? So it's going to say step 2, we need to use that PowerPoint slide. So I've already gone ahead and downloaded it. So let's check it out. So here is the PowerPoint deck. Now you have full control on the worksheet. You have full control on the PowerPoint deck, so you can make changes if you need to. But inside the PowerPoint deck, you're going to have a series of questions that you can ask your students in real time. So that being said, let's try one of these questions out. Since this is a biology crowd, I'm gonna give this back to Natalie, so that way she can ask you one of these questions.
Okay, thanks, Jim. You talk it through though, because I was an English major.
All right, so here's the question. If the sequence of one strand of DNA is A, G, T, C, T, A, G, C, what is the sequence of the complementary strand? Okay. So Natalie has made this question live. I see that there's one response already. All right. So go ahead, try this question out on iClicker.
I think we have 3 more people in our iClicker class. It's okay to guess. Okay. I'm going to close it at the 1 minute mark. All right, Jim, you want to talk through the correct answers for those of us who don't know?
All right, so according to Chargaff's rule, A binds with T, G binds with C. So if you've got for the first letter A, the complementary strand will start with T. So looking for that, choice C is the one that has the correct starting letter. So that one's nice. That one's a lot easier. But going back to what I was trying to say, with Achieve and iClicker, with both of these together, we're trying to make sure that we've got you covered before class, during class with iClicker, and after class with our homework assignments and summative quizzes.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so this has been really fun together, and now I want to know, how confident does this group feel about using iClicker and Achieve together in your classes? So this is another example of one of those target questions. I've just sent you that capture of my desktop, and all you need to do is touch the emoticon that responds to how you feel, and then send that response. And you can see that the closer together we ask iClicker questions, the faster the responses come in. I'm going to let this one just go for 30 seconds since we are close to the end of our time together. And then again, right here, oh, look. Looks like some people have some questions. Some people are a little laughy face. If you still have questions, we are here to help you. So we have iClicker training and Achieve training support. Let me make this smaller. So we have a really big support library for admins, instructors, and students, but we also offer live support via chat, email, and phone. So if you bring iClicker into your classroom, let's say you have one student who doesn't know why they're having some issue, you don't have to be tech support for them. We are here to support them. And then you can again meet with us for a training. That's something that we would really love to do with you. And I have a short URL here that leads to a page where you can sign up for training for either iClicker or you can sign up for Achieve. Unfortunately, you can't click on this because this is just displaying it to you through GoToWebinar, but we can send a link to it in later communications. So let's get to our Q&A session.
All right, thanks, Natalie. We have had a couple of questions come in, but it's definitely not too late. If you have a question you'd like to ask, go ahead and pop it into the questions panel. So the first question we have is, how do I know if iClicker is included with my Achieve course?
Okay, Jim, is it all right if I do this one?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, all right, so there are a few Achieve courses called Achieve Essentials where iClicker may not be included, but for the most part, you are going to see iClicker included in your Achieve course. And all that you need to do is go ahead and log into your Achieve course, click on the gradebook, and then you will see a button in the upper right corner that says iClicker. When you click on that button, just seeing that button there lets you know iClicker is available in your course, and clicking on that button will walk you through the process of getting it synced up with your course and ready to go.
Perfect, thanks, Natalie. And I believe this question is for Jim specifically about Achieve. How can you make your quiz answers available for students before the due date for those students who finish their assignments earlier than the due date?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question one more time? I'm so
Sure.
sorry.
How can you make your quiz answers available for students before the due date for those students who finished their assignments earlier than the due date?
So you can do that. Remember when I was showing you the step-by-step play of how to get an assignment live? In step 2, you can actually set the assignment to be the answers to the assignment to be released. So if you didn't want it to be released, when the student gets the question right or gives up on that question, you can actually set the quiz to be that students would get the answer after submitting the assignment. You also have so if you wanted students to see the answers before the due date, you could do it that way. The other choice that you have is that you can have the answers show up after the due date as well. But so you can go into settings and actually set it that way if you choose to have students have access to the answers before that due date.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question. Do students have to enter an access code to get iClicker access if it's included with the Achieve course?
As long as you set up the course through Achieve, no, they will never be prompted to have a payment. If they're in another course that uses iClicker that doesn't use Achieve, they would have to pay for that course though.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you have an Achieve Essentials course where the
Yes.
iClicker component isn't included, but you could still use it. You could bundle it with your Achieve Essentials course.
Yep.
Okay, I think this is another question for Jim. If I need to give a student extra time on an assignment, how would I do that?
Absolutely, you can do that. So in that third screen, that when you're choosing the due date and the time the assignment is due and the number of points for the assignment, so you're about to assign the assignment, right underneath that there is a box that says create student exception, and you would just when you click on that box, you would type in the student's name, and then you'll be able to choose to when the assignment wants to be released, and if you need to give time and a half, you can choose that time then.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I think this is our last question for now. Do I have to sync both my iClicker gradebook and my Achieve gradebook with my learning management system?
Jim, you want to do that or you want me to take it?
So you can sync your iClicker grades into Achieve. So you can make that part happen, and then you can integrate your Achieve course into the LMS. So that would be the easiest way to do it. In my what I've done for my classes personally, that's the way I've done it, where I've had my iClicker grades trickle into Achieve, and then Achieve trickle into Blackboard. It is possible to integrate iClicker separately from Achieve, but it can get a little messy. So, Natalie, I don't want to speak too much to that because I'm not
Yeah.
well versed in that area. So, Natalie, I
Yeah.
defer to you.
Well, I would recommend exactly what you recommended, Jim, where, we really do try and make it so that if an instructor has a unique need to have it bypass Achieve, we could work with them to make that happen. But for the most part, what you're going to want to do is simply click on that link in the gradebook, set up iClicker that way, and then when you want to sync grades with iClicker, do it through Achieve. And doing it that way makes sure your students will never get prompted for access codes or payment or anything like that. But it also just kind of emphasizes that Achieve is their hub for class learning. Um, and then it makes it really easy to have those Achieve grades go into the LMS gradebook. I think that's how it works ideally.
All right, great. Thanks, Natalie and Jim. That's it for questions. So just as a reminder, in the next couple of days, we will be sending an email with the recording of this webinar, the slide deck, also that link for signing up for demos and trainings to everyone who attended. So if you do think of any additional questions later, feel free to respond back to that email and we'll get you the answers you need. So with that, from all of us at Macmillan Learning, thanks for joining, and we hope you enjoy using iClicker and Achieve.
Yeah, thanks
And
everybody.
thanks, Natalie and Jim, for a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay.
All right, have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.